There's a reason your life feels stuck, and it's not because you're unlucky. It's because somewhere along the way, you got comfortable, and comfort made you soft. But before you click away, ask yourself this: why does hearing that bother you so much? Because deep down, you know it's true. And if that sentence hit you harder than you expected, then you clicked on the right video. This isn't another motivational speech where I sugarcoat your problems. This is the one video that's gonna call you out, shake you awake, and force you to see the version of yourself you've been avoiding. So if you're ready to stop playing small, stop surrendering to your excuses, and finally reclaim the discipline you've been losing piece by piece, stay right here, because what I'm about to tell you might be exactly what you've been needing to hear. The truth is, softness doesn't show up like some dramatic moment. It creeps in quietly, disguised as taking it easy, resting, or I'll do it tomorrow. You don't wake up one day weak. You slowly become it through tiny decisions you thought didn't matter. Every time you snooze your alarm, every time you avoid discomfort, every time you break a promise to yourself, you hardwire softness into your identity. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. You've been negotiating with your own mind way too much. You let your feelings decide your actions, and feelings will always choose the easiest road. That's why you're tired all the time, unmotivated, inconsistent, and wondering why nothing changes. You're not unlucky. You're just getting beaten by your own comfort, and until you face that, nothing in your life will move. Softness becomes dangerous because it hides inside your daily routines. It makes you believe that skipping the gym one time is harmless, that scrolling for just 5 minutes is no big deal, that quitting halfway is something you'll fix tomorrow. But these moments stack up, and before you realize it, your standards collapse. The version of you that once wanted more slowly fades into the background, replaced by someone who settles, someone who avoids pressure, someone who fears challenge. And the worst part? You get used to it. You adjust to being average. You start building excuses so you don't feel guilty about letting yourself slip. Softness wins because it convinces you that you're doing okay, even while your potential is screaming for more. And unless you confront that lie, you'll keep living a life that feels smaller than the one you're meant for. Softness doesn't just slow you down, it silently steals the life you were supposed to build. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're trading away your future. You lose momentum, you lose ambition, and worst of all, you lose trust in yourself. Because deep down, you know when you're capable of more and still choosing less. That's why you feel frustrated, anxious, stuck. Your mind knows you're playing below your potential. And here's the cost nobody talks about. Softness becomes a habit, then a pattern, then an identity. You wake up one day realizing the opportunities you wanted passed you by, not because you weren't talented, but because you weren't disciplined. The scariest part, most people don't realize this until it's too late. Being soft now might feel easy, but the regret it creates later hits harder than any discomfort you're avoiding today. The hidden cost of being soft is that it convinces you that your dreams are still within reach, even while you're quietly drifting further away from them. You start telling yourself you'll get serious next week, next month, after things settle down. But things never settle down, you just settle. And that's the trap, because the more you delay the disciplined version of yourself, the more impossible it feels to become them. Softness eats away at your confidence. Every skipped goal lowers your self-belief until you don't even trust your own promises anymore. And once your mind starts doubting you, it stops fighting for you. You become someone who watches life instead of shaping it. That's the real price, losing the fire, the edge, the momentum that separates people who rise from people who stay exactly where they are. You don't just lose time when you're soft, you lose yourself. The world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the ones who can handle pressure without folding. Life is brutally simple. If you're tough, you rise. If you're soft, you get replaced. There's always someone out there hungrier than you, willing to push harder, willing to suffer more for the life you keep saying you want. And that's why comfort is dangerous. It tricks you into believing you have more time than you do. Meanwhile, the world is moving fast. Opportunities are disappearing, and competition is growing. Success doesn't come to people who wait for motivation. It comes to people who show up when they're tired, when it's boring, when it's inconvenient. That's what separates the ones who win from the ones who wish. The world doesn't care about your excuses, your feelings, or your comfort zone. It only cares about results. And the moment you understand that, you stop acting soft and start showing up like someone who actually wants the life they talk about. Toughness matters because life will hit you whether you're ready or not, and if you're soft, every setback becomes a collapse. Most people break at the first sign of resistance. They quit the moment things stop being easy. But the world doesn't pause for quitters. It rewards the ones who can take a hit, adjust, and keep moving. When you're tough, you become unstoppable because challenges don't scare you, they sharpen you. But when you're soft, even small problems feel overwhelming. And that's how you fall behind without even realizing it. Toughness isn't about being emotionless. It's about refusing to let your emotions run your life. It's knowing that discipline will take you places motivation never will. And once you build that toughness, opportunities start opening, respect starts growing, and your life finally begins to move in the direction you've always wanted. There's always a single moment when everything changes, when you finally get sick of your own excuses, when the frustration outweighs the comfort, when you look at your life and say, enough. That's the moment you harden up. It doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens when you're fed up with being stuck in the same cycle. You stop negotiating with your comfort, you stop letting your feelings decide your future, and you start acting like someone who's done being average. This turning point isn't loud or dramatic. It's a quiet decision inside your mind, but its impact is massive. Because once you make that decision, discipline becomes non-negotiable. You stop waiting for the perfect mood or the perfect time, and you start moving with purpose. That's when your entire identity shifts from someone who talks about change to someone who creates it. The turning point usually hits you in a moment you don't expect. Maybe you're staring at yourself in the mirror. Maybe you're lying in bed scrolling your life away. Maybe you're exhausted from repeating the same failures, and suddenly something snaps. You realize no one is coming to save you, no one is responsible for your discipline, and no one can fight your battles for you. That's when your mindset shifts from "I hope things get better" to "I'm going to make things better." You stop waiting for motivation like a child waiting for a promotion. You start demanding more from yourself. That one mental shift is powerful, because once you decide you're done being soft, every excuse loses its power over you. The laziness, the procrastination, the comfort, they don't disappear, but you finally stop letting them win. That's the moment your real life begins. If you want to stop being soft, you don't need a massive life overhaul. You need one simple, non-negotiable act of discipline every single day. One move that you do no matter what, even when you're tired, unmotivated, or irritated. That one move becomes the anchor that hardens your mind. It might be a cold shower, a brutal workout, writing for 10 minutes, waking up without snoozing. Whatever it is, it must be something you can't run from, because when you force yourself to win one battle each day, you're training your brain to take control instead of collapsing at the first sign of discomfort. Micro-discipline builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence builds toughness. Most people fail because they try to fix their whole life at once, but real mental toughness is built through small, consistent victories that prove you can do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it. That's how you transform from soft to unstoppable. Comfort is addictive, and the reason most people stay soft is because they keep feeding that addiction without realizing it. Every time you choose the easy option, your brain rewards you with a quick hit of relief, and that relief becomes something you crave. That's why breaking the cycle feels impossible at first. Your mind is wired to avoid anything that feels uncomfortable, challenging, or demanding. But here's the truth. The only way out is to start starving the comfort that's been controlling you. You have to interrupt the pattern. You have to catch yourself when you're about to make the easy choice and force yourself to do the hard one instead. At first, it feels painful. Then it feels empowering. Then it becomes your new normal. And once you build a pattern of choosing discomfort on purpose, everything in your life changes. your discipline sharpens, your confidence grows, and suddenly the things that used to break you become the things that build you. That's how you break the cycle. You stop feeding softness and start feeding strength. The cycle of comfort addiction is dangerous because it disguises itself as self-care or taking it slow or listening to your body, when in reality, it's just your mind protecting its own laziness. You start choosing the soft option so often that it becomes automatic. You don't even think anymore, you just react. The couch becomes your default, procrastination becomes your pattern, and avoiding effort becomes your identity. And the longer you stay in that state, the harder it becomes to escape. You're not just fighting habits, you're fighting the version of yourself you've been reinforcing for years. That's why you must force discomfort into your life on purpose. You must practice doing what you least want to do, because each time you do, you reclaim a piece of the discipline you lost. Breaking the cycle isn't about destroying comfort completely. It's about refusing to let it run your life. The moment you regain control over your choices, you regain control over your future. Every time you dodge discomfort, you're not escaping pain, you're just pushing it into your future where it grows into regret. The workouts you skip, the opportunities you ignore, the habits you refuse to build, they all come back, not as small consequences, but as a version of your life you don't want to live. And that's the part most people never think about. Avoiding pain today feels harmless, but it slowly shapes a future where you're weaker, more frustrated, and stuck with the outcome of choices you made when you were comfortable. Regret is heavier than any challenge you're avoiding right now. It hits you years later when you realize you could have been stronger, further, happier, if only you were willing to feel a little discomfort when it mattered. That's why you must choose the short-term pain that builds you instead of the long-term regret that destroys you. You don't escape struggle by being soft, you only postpone it, and the version that returns is always worse. The truth is, the pain you're avoiding right now is tiny compared to the pain you'll feel when you realize you wasted years running from your own potential. You think skipping the hard work today protects you, but all it does is build a future where you're disappointed in yourself. One day you'll look back and see a long list of things you planned to do, wanted to do, or almost did, and that list will hurt more than any workout, any early morning, any disciplined choice ever could. Regret doesn't show up as a single moment. It shows up as a life you no longer recognize, a life you know you could have changed if you weren't so soft when it counted. And the worst part? You can't undo it. You can't rewind time. That's why embracing discomfort now is the smartest decision you'll ever make. The temporary pain you feel today is nothing compared to the lifelong regret you avoid by stepping up when your softer self wants to step back. Everything changes the moment you stop trying to act disciplined and start becoming the kind of person for whom discipline is the default. This is the identity shift, when toughness stops being something you force and becomes something you are. You begin to see yourself differently. You walk with more certainty, you think with more clarity, and you stop tolerating the laziness you once justified. Instead of asking, "How do I push myself today?" you start asking, "Who would the disciplined version of me be right now?" And that question rewires your entire mindset. You stop chasing motivation and start living with standards. You stop breaking promises to yourself because it no longer aligns with who you've chosen to become. The softness, the excuses, the emotional reactions, they lose their grip on you because you've replaced them with an identity built on strength, consistency, and self-respect. When you shift your identity, your habits follow, your discipline follows, and your entire life elevates with it. The identity shift happens when you finally understand that toughness isn't built on hype. It's built on who you tell yourself you are every single day. When you see yourself as someone who follows through, you naturally start following through. When you see yourself as someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness, you stop giving into it. This is why so many people stay soft. They keep trying to change their habits without changing the person those habits belong to. But once you rewrite your identity, the behaviors you used to struggle with become automatic. You start choosing the harder path not because you have to, but because anything less feels out of character. You begin to prefer discipline over comfort, growth over ease, challenge over safety. And that's when you know you've transformed. When toughness stops being a performance and becomes the lens through which you move, think, and live. This is the part where most people nod their head, feel motivated for a few minutes, and then slip right back into the same soft habits that got them here. But not you. Not if you're serious about changing. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing you've been avoiding, one thing you've been too soft to start, and do it today. Not later, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Today, prove to yourself that you can win one battle, because one win turns into momentum, and momentum turns into a new identity. And if this video hit you harder than you expected, then don't just click away. Commit. Drop a comment telling me the one thing you're doing today to stop being soft. Hit like if you're done negotiating with your excuses. Subscribe if you're ready to build the strongest version of yourself. This is your moment. Don't waste it. This challenge is more than a task, it's a line in the sand. Because if you can't push yourself to take one uncomfortable action today, then nothing in your life is going to change. You'll keep watching motivational videos, keep feeling inspired for a moment, and keep returning to the same soft routines that have been holding you back for years. But the second you take action, even a small one, you break that cycle. You prove to your own mind that you're someone who moves, not someone who waits. And that proof is powerful. It's the spark that separates the old you from the one you're trying to become. So don't overthink it. Don't hesitate. Pick that one thing you've been avoiding and attack it with full force. Let this moment be the turning point you look back on, the moment you finally stopped being soft and took control of your life.